So without further ado, let me turn it over to Rachel and Kane from Marshall Reddick. You guys take it over.
Nice to meet you. I'll share my screen, Annie. We had a little bit of a presentation that we were going to kind of run through. I think, let me see if it gives me the ability. Um, Here we go. So yeah, my name's Kian. I'm the sales manager for Marshall Reddick for the state of Texas. I really apologize because this is like an ancient headshot of myself, and I'm in the process of we have a social media guy. I'm going to be getting my headshot within the next month. So this was me many moons ago. But I started real estate in 2017. I joined Marshall Reddick a year into my real estate career. I have a broker's license and I have had it for about 4 years now. I started out at Marshall Reddick as a leasing agent. So we are part brokerage, part property management company. So that's how we actually got to know Annie as we took over management for her. And we've kind of also done the sales side as well. But I started off primarily with leases. I didn't have too much experience prior to then, and learned a lot about what makes a good investments via the tenants, so in showing them different pockets of San Antonio and Austin, and my stomping grounds, by the way, is Central Texas. I may have mentioned that a little bit earlier. I was born in San Antonio. I kind of, in a lot of my childhood was in Plano, and I spent the longest stretch in New Braunfels, which is a little bit in the middle of Austin and San Antonio. And in adulthood, I moved back to San Antonio and have lived there ever since. But even now, I go in between all three of our Central Texas offices, and then I do usually like a quarterly trip to Houston and Dallas, where we also have offices there as well. But yeah, I spend like 2 days in San Antonio, 2 days in New Braunfels, and a day in Austin. But yeah, that was my stomping grounds. I got to know a lot about leases there. That kind of led a lot of my methodology for working with investors later, is that, I could say in confidence, hey, this sort of pocket, you'll see this demographic, or you'll see this type of tenant, and this is their job core. And where can we actually maximize rents the most? And where is the longest days on market? Because I really do feel like tenants sort of steer how investments perform. Obviously, for the rental side and the cash flow side, but also like how the job core is of the area is not just indicative of the rents, it's also indicative of the sales prices. If there's good paying jobs in the area and there's prosperity in the area and it's a very educated and affluent area, that will feed into the sales prices as well. And obviously, with the movement that we've seen since COVID from companies, things can kind of, certain pockets can grow very rapidly. And being from here and seeing the growth and seeing where areas are up and coming, I kind of had that edge, again, both with the rental side and having lived here a lot of my life. So eventually moved into sales. I grew a little bit of a team at Marshall Reddick for Central Texas, and started working with several investors for growing their portfolios, doing 1031 exchanges. And then eventually our team got really big. I was grateful that when I started at Marshall Reddick, we managed about 100 doors, which seemed like a lot at the time, but now we manage about, I think it's anywhere between 23 and 2,500. We're rapidly growing. Again, we're in the major metropolitans here in Texas, so San Antonio, New Braunfels, Austin, Houston,
Or
and
tons.
Dallas. So big animals, but very grateful to be a part of the team here. And this is 7 years for me, 8 years in the industry. And so again, my part now is really helping train our agents, helping get people situated, having a bird's eye perspective for all these different markets and how they contrast. And I work with Rachel a lot. We go back many years. Rachel, in her introduction, will kind of go over, but she was originally in California and was a client of Marshall Reddick. So that's how we actually got to know each other. But I own investment property in Texas. I built my primary. I have a barn dominium on some land in Schertz, which is San Antonio Metro. And then I'm also in the mortgage fund. So I think in the future, I'd love to kind of share a little bit maybe about the mortgage fund that we have. That's obviously a different avenue of our business. But kind of getting into that, we have four main sectors for Marshall Reddick. As I mentioned, the main two is going to be property management and brokerage. So that's going to be the buy and sell, helping investors identify good markets. And we're not just in Texas, we're also in Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, and California. We have partners in some of the other states, but that's where we have brick and mortar. So we can kind of take you from start to finish. So we can help identify property for you or sell a current one that you have. And then we can also do the leasing and we can also do the management. And if you need private financing, because maybe you've maxed out what is available to you through conventional, or you want less red tape than conventional, we do have some people who buy with private lending. It's a higher interest rate. And that main office is out of our Newport location, which is kind of our headquarters. And then we also have the investment fund that is also kind of coincides with private lending, which is great. You can get about a 8.5% return. I have a lot of my money there in addition to having property. And I know Rachel is also co-signs on that. She's in the fund and also has some property as well. So those are our main services. Again, these are our main markets. For California, we're also in Los Angeles and Newport. We manage a lot of properties over there. We've been growing our offices rapidly. And then for Tennessee, we're mainly in Clarksville and Nashville. Those are our main two cities out there. And then for Florida, we're primarily in Cape Coral. That is a smaller office. We're not in all of Florida. But if you happen to have properties other places and maybe Annie doesn't have a referral out there, we're happy to see if maybe we have somebody that we can connect with Annie, and then Annie can make that connection there. These are our teams. Like I said, for these markets, we have brick and mortar, so we're not doing a lot of remote work. We don't like to cut corners. We're not, we have national standing, but we're not like a lot of national property managers. A lot of national property managers are more remote managers. So they may live in Seattle, Washington, they may live in New York City or in the Bay Area, and they really rely on nothing but 1099s and contractors to get the job done. We employ locals for everything. The only thing that we really don't try to do is a lot of in-house maintenance. We feel like as a property manager, there is a lot of conflict of interest with your property manager making income off of your your hard times with your property, whether it's fixing a roof or fixing an AC. We don't really want to profiteer off of that. We want to have several local vendors where we can get you multiple bids and we can be competitive in the market and get you what's best for you without sacrificing any of the quality. So yeah, we have big PM staff. This is a few of our offices that we have. We have the big teal sign that you can see from I-35 in New Braunfels. That's the office I'm at right now. So I apologize. It looks it's 8 o'clock for us, which is fine. I'm a night owl, but I apologize. My office looks cave-like at the moment. It doesn't usually look like this. But without furthermore, I wanted to introduce Rachel. She is out of our Houston office. She is the Houston girl. I know that's what a lot of you guys wanted to hear today. So just wanted to give you a general introduction. Rachel is great. Again, we go far back. I've been working with Rachel almost about 5 years now. She'll kind of go into it. I don't want to take over. So Rachel, I'll let you kind of get into a little bit about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the intro, Kian and Annie. And also, guys, let's just keep it casual too. I know you came to learn about Houston, but if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. This isn't formal by any means, so I will try not to hit you with too much information. But for those of you I haven't met, I'm Rachel. I've worked with Kian, like I said, for a long time. I started my investment journey with Marshall Reddick in 2012 with our first investment property, and have bought and sold a lot of property through MR through the years. And yes, we, just like Kian, I'm a capital fund partner as well, invested in our fund. I'm also an individual note lender. So kind of what Kian was talking about, some people, if you have more than 10 mortgages where you exceed the Fannie Freddie limitation, you would need to go the route of private lending. We have an in-house private lending services too, or for, some of the smaller commercial properties as well. So I like to also fund those. And then I've sold at this point 225 properties across the country since 2020, and I'm licensed in California and Texas. So that's a little bit about me. All right, Kian, we'll see if this little, oh, there we go. So here's a little quick overview for tonight. So kind of a recap of my move out here a little bit. I know some of you said you were from Houston, so I apologize if any of this is repetitive for you, but just some of the fun things about the city, some popular investing suburbs, and then at the end, we'll get into some hand-picked properties as well that we would recommend. So home sweet home, Houston Metro. So I grew up a little bit about my background. I grew up in Seattle. I moved to California for college when I was 18. That's actually where I met my husband and also the CEO of our company and his wife. So we go back half a lifetime ago, more than that at this point. So and then lived in California for 18 years. So Houston, when I used to think about Texas, I thought of like thirsty cowboys. And the first time we came out here, I was like, man, Houston's beautiful. It reminds me of the Northwest. For anyone that hasn't been here, it's very lush, very wooded, very green compared to different parts of the state. So it's definitely a beautiful area.
Will attest the best trees and like forests that you can experience in Texas. And this is like the bragging point, I think, for a lot of Texas. I know Californians try to say this, maybe I'm biased, but like we have, I feel like every terrain. And it's always cool to get away to Houston because I feel like it's very forested and you don't get that. Obviously, Dallas is very flat. Central Texas, more hilly. You have a lot of like small brush, but we don't get the tall trees or anything right now. I think from October to December, they do Renaissance Fest near the Woodlands. And what's cool about that Renaissance Fest is you feel like you're in like Game of Thrones, like you feel like you're immersed in that completely. And the Woodlands is kind of its own pocket. Not all of Houston is like that, but North Houston in particular gives you that feel. And I think that that's a lot of great investments that Rachel is definitely going to share today.
Yeah, absolutely. All these photos we took in Texas. I will say the only thing we don't really have to offer up here is a lot of topography. There's some hills the more north you go, but Central Texas has some more rolling hills. But no, Houston in particular, the metro is beautiful, and every pocket has its own little vibe for, some investors are looking for more one thing over another. So we are a giant major, metro. We cover 9 different counties. So it's a very large footprint. I would say at presently, probably 75% of our management portfolio resides in Montgomery County. A lot of those were organic growth where people purchased their investment properties through Marshall Reddick. So they had our guidance, and we can get into the reasons behind why people may go in that direction. There's beautiful and amazing pockets of all of these counties. It's just a lot of times, as from an investment perspective, it can be a little cost prohibitive with insurance the closer you get to the Gulf. So, excuse me, these are the 9 different counties that covers the footprint. So for as far as Houston goes, how we as a city impact the Texas economy, obviously we have a booming climate, a lot of extensive job diversity, which we have some info on that in a little bit. But yes, we cover obviously energy. We have a huge medical presence. We have the largest collaborative medical campus in the whole world. Literally, people come from around the world for medical treatment here. We have an amazing aerospace industry, hospitality, and we're also the largest and most populated city in Texas and also the southern US. So right now we're at 2.3 million residents. In that Houston map we just showed, it covers 640 square miles as well. Fortune 500, obviously really good for the economy. We're a hub here. We're the 3rd largest in the country. We have 26 Fortune 500 companies in Houston Metro. So that's a really good sign for the economy, incredibly robust and healthy. Obviously, some really large employers here as well. We're a very young city. Our median age is only 34.9, so I'm old for this city. So we're the 2nd lowest in all of the nation's major metros, and then like I kind of mentioned above, with the Houston Med Center, it's the largest collaborative medical campus in the world. So there are a lot of satellite campuses up in Montgomery County, which are near a lot of our preferred neighborhoods, and we can get into that in a little bit as well. And sorry, guys, we switched over to Canva a couple presentations ago, so we're still learning the driving of it. So this is kind of a snapshot. This is pulled from National Association of Realtors. If you go to our website, any property you look at on there is going to have this graph underneath. So this is our market performance. I always tell my investors, Houston's like a Clydesdale, generally speaking, like very strong, steady. You're not seeing the big swings up and down like you could see sometimes in a metro like Austin, where that can be very advantageous, or it can sting if you're riding on the downflow too. Like Houston tends to be very, very strong and steady. And this is the bottom part of that. I didn't want to make it microscopic, so you can take a look at. So again, this is Houston metro market trend from National Association of Realtors. over, this goes back as far as 89. You can make it as short or as long as you want. But one thing I always like to point out to my investors right here, when we had a real estate based market crash before, we didn't even dip 1%. If you looked at markets like Nevada, Arizona, even Florida, sometimes you saw 40 or 50% corrections. People were losing houses left and right. Houston literally didn't even dip 1%. And we had a growth year in 2009, which is almost unheard of. So, and that was back then. We've had a massive influx of major employers since then. So we are positioned very well. By the way, if I look a little rosy, my office is probably 89 degrees right now. They turn off the AC at night in our building. So bear with me here.
The one thing I was going to add, Rachel, if you don't mind,
Please.
on the last slide, just to kind of give people some contrast, is that we don't have it on this, but looking at the same graph for Austin, San Antonio, or Dallas, you've seen bigger dips in the 2024 stats that we already have. Those have already come out in this year, and you were seeing that usually right now 2023 is negative for majority of the markets in the United States. 2024 has also been another negative, and 2025 is going to be probably another negative for most metropolitans. So we usually try to look at not try to look for a non-negative or like a market that happens to never dip whatsoever. There's market cycles, it's normal, but we want to know based on the Job Corps and the city's elements, its culture, how does it stand during a disaster? And I think what Rachel was saying is like 2008 and 9, it didn't dip that much comparing to a lot of its competitors. But now comparing it in our kind of like weird environment that we're at, where it's not quite a recession, but it feels like a recession. And it's kind of been from 2023 to now, based on kind of what the Fed's doing with rates at the moment and inflation and stagflation. But looking at San Antonio and Austin, those markets have dipped significantly. Austin in particular is one of those where it's a even younger crowd than Houston. So I think the average age is about 32 to 31, and that seems to actually go down almost every year. It's a younger demographic there because of the college, but because of the Job Corps is so situated in tech in Austin, that has had a huge correction for rents. And that also feeds into sales prices too. So Houston, I think being more diversified, and as the tech bubble for Austin, at least, that had this kind of exodus there, also now has kind of deflated a little bit. You don't really have that in Houston, where there's a lot more of these stable jobs that aren't felt as heavily by like AI or COVID or inflation. So I think that's been very good for Houston. And again, if you go to our website and make that comparison, when I do these kind of general Texas presentations for Marshall Reddick clients, the Houston stats the last few years and also the 08 and 09 crash were the best. So that's just for Texas, but like Rachel was saying, even for these other outside markets like Arizona, I know is very attractive. Las Vegas, we have a lot of clients that sometimes get into there as well, or Tennessee, you'll see deeper cuts. So the goal is not to see nothing but green all the time. I'd love to know where that's at. And if that does exist, it's probably smaller greens, one here, two here. But you can see when things are good, at least for Houston, we've even seen double digits for appreciation. So we don't want to be where everything is unrealistically green and probably smaller greens. We're trying to make sure that the reds are very small and that the greens are maximized when times are good. And I think Houston is definitely in the play for that.
Yeah, absolutely. All of that super spot on. And just as far as like the investor neighborhoods that are very popular with this image, I want to be very clear, like there's obviously some great options beyond these, are just tend to be the more popular pockets. Anything south of I-10 though, it just, the fact of the matter is you're going to have higher insurance. Like as a general rule of thumb, south of the 99, it's going to go up. South of the 10, it's really going to go up. So my husband works in insurance, so I've seen thousands of these quotes for investors through the last few years. So I see them all the time. I've helped a lot of people relocate for their primary residence in more of these like southern areas. It's like some of my favorite parts of Houston Metro are down near the coast down here. Clear Lake Shores is one of the cutest little gem ever. But insurance is egregious down in this direction. I helped some investors move out for their primary residence in Friendswood, which is down here. It's like 15 minutes to the, upper part of the Gulf, maybe even 20 from their house. And their home insurance down here was about $8,000 a year for a DR Horton 4.2. So, and that was their primary residence, which is always, it's just something to consider. So that's very dramatic. That's extreme. Most policies in Montgomery County will run you between $1,300 and $2,000. So I mean, it makes a massive difference for investing. So just things to keep in mind as you're shopping. So these are some of our most popular pockets, and we'll get into a little bit later. But this one in particular is one of the biggest sweet spots for a certain builder we have that have some incredibly low tax rates too. This is in Willis Metro. Like some of our strategies is identifying really awesome properties that are very close to other bigger, much more expensive communities, but in near proximity. So just something to keep in mind. So just kind of a recap, we touched on some of this, but these are kind of the main reasons a lot of our investors are gravitating toward Houston at this point. Texas is always a popular market with our client base. It's just, it's strong, it's stable, it's proved to be a, dependable market regardless of the cycle. But Houston in particular, very insulated. So we have really robust economic growth out here. Like we were saying, huge employers, that's a statewide thing, but specifically, Houston, like we were saying, we have all these Fortune 500 companies, 26 specifically in our metro. We're the only Houston metro that has a Fortune 500 concentration like that. Very diverse economy, which we'll get into in a little bit, but that's amazing because the likelihood of an entire economic sector shuttering and leaving is next to none. But even if one did, the highest at this point, I think is 14% or 13%. So our pie chart, so to speak, with our job diversity is very, very robust and strong. And Apple, I'm sure if you haven't been living under a rock, you've heard about this. They are opening next year an AI facility in Houston, which is going to be incredible. They're committing to, they originally said, well, we can get into it in a little bit. We have a slide a little bit later. So obviously high GDP, we have really strong job climate out here, very, very friendly toward businesses. So obviously with events over the past few years, you're just seeing a really strong influx of businesses to the area. Very affordable housing. I would confidently say Houston, of all the major metros across Texas, when I'm comparing them with properties in our other markets, I can 9 times out of 10 get my clients the most affordable housing in this market. So we have strong income earning along with affordable housing. So it's a really nice ratio for investors and strong rental demand. There's a lot of jobs, a lot of people need a place to live. And we didn't put this on the slide too, but another thing, Houston specifically, can feel free to hop in whenever, but you don't see this area being overdeveloped like you do in some other areas. That's something you have to be really cautious of. Sometimes you see, especially you saw build starts with 2020, these builders got, a little bit greedy and ordered all this construction. And even in other parts of Texas, you've seen areas where they put up all these houses and now there's just, and the demand just is not there. So you don't see that as much in Houston, which is really awesome.
I know we gathered a few questions that a few of our investors ask a lot, new investors. So I know all of you may not fall in that category, but at least for some of y'all that have questions, this may be on your mind. I know there's news articles regarding this, but a lot of people are asking what's happening rents right now in Texas. Things have dipped a little bit for us. Just like appreciation has come a little bit down, just like Annie says, she feels the softening in the market and the types of offers she's getting. The rental market is kind of talking in the same way. In terms of buying an investment, you pick your poison in anything. So it's like you buy, and I was doing sales a lot. I wasn't a sales manager during the like 2020 to 2022 stretch when things were aggressive. And I was in the Austin market, which was extra aggressive for the state. When people were doing like 30 offers and like you have to give away your firstborn child and give like your kidney and like outrageous things, And now obviously it's been humbled a little bit. I think what we're trying to look for, and this is the value of being a PM company and a brokerage, is that you see both sides of the coin. And Rachel has been someone who has gone the leasing route as well. So she's leased a lot of properties and she knows where it is easy to lease and where it isn't. And I think the two principles we usually try to follow is being the worst player on the best team. And the other one, I had like a different word for it, but one of my newer agents calls it the Costco method. So it's kind of being in proximity to things, and the thing that he always says is Costco is important. I thought that's interesting because I would always just say like any grocer. For us, it may be HEB is pretty prevalent, or maybe it's a Buc-ee's, be near a Buc-ee's. But the more things you have around you, proximity factor, your tenants are obviously going to reap the benefits of that. And I think for Houston, it's very spread out, and people get attracted, like Annie said, sometimes to a cheaper property that has seemingly high cash flow. But then from that initial year, the numbers never change. Like you never get the increases in the sales value, you never get the increases in the rent, but you didn't really want to take a hit the first year. So it's something that's, a little bit of a nicer area near the Costco, near the Buc-ee's, and you have good proximity. So like Rachel said, if it's Conroe's next to Woodlands. So maybe it's going to be hard to be in the Woodlands, but be the most affordable thing next to the Woodlands to have proximity to Woodlands. And Conroe's good for that. There's parts of Conroe with decent school districts where you are for that pocket, at least being kind of the worst player on the best team, rather than the opposite, which is to try to be the nicest house in the neighborhood, because it's kind of diminishing returns. Like I said, maybe for the first year, you maximize rents, but then for appreciation, at least, usually it's going to kind of break apart from there, and you're not going to get the most out of the, a 10-year hold, 5-year hold, 15 years, however long you're in it for. I don't know, Rachel, if you've had a lot of properties as well, different classes, fourplexes, duplexes. What are your thoughts on
Yeah.
kind of right now?
I would definitely say echo everything you said. That's very important to make sure that you're near things. Sometimes the more rural listings we see take longer to move. So just making sure you have proximity. But this is the thing. I just kind of a personal note. Obviously, I've been a client of this company for 13 years now, and I would like to work here my whole career. We have deep friendships and history with this company as well. They've helped our family a lot. So if I'm going to help you guys, it's not going to do me any good to be anything but completely genuine and advise you accordingly. I have no problem telling you guys, like, do not invest in that area. I will only recommend something that I would personally choose myself as well. So
And I think a lot of like, especially like because we're all under one umbrella. Property
Mhm.
management's not in a
Mhm.
different building. They're not across the city. Like we come to work with these people. So it's not like we take comfort in selling something that has a bad tenant, placing a bad tenant, attracting bad tenants, attracting bad maintenance, attracting bad vendors that don't help do
Yeah.
good maintenance, because our property management team, and this is, how sometimes when you pass to a brokerage that's not also a PM company, they don't really care afterwards. They say, "Oh, this is a nice house. I like this one." They think about the commission, but they don't really think about the long term. Because maybe they're not in this space, so to speak, but they're also not the property management element. So they don't really hear a lot of the maintenance calls that we get, and they don't hear a lot of the tenant complaints, and they don't speak to a leasing team. And we have these meetings every week with property management and leasing. And so that's kind of given me and Rachel that edge with that knowledge. But again, we don't say goodbye to the client, sayonara. We really want the client to stay long term and them to see appreciation, because the longer that it kind of like the more that it appreciates, you can actually take from the property and replicate quicker. So you can actually cash out refinance by the second, the third, the fourth. If we sell you something that doesn't appreciate or has a bunch of maintenance that you're sinking into it, you're never going to be able to do that. So that's just kind of the edge that we have, that again, in working with other brokerages, or a lot of the times we inherit property management,
Yes,
on
absolutely.
something, where we're kind of stepping in and they're saying somebody sold them this and it was just a disaster. And we're kind of trying to clean it up or do a 1031 and get them into something that's a lot more turnkey and actually appreciating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I've helped that are like, but my sales agent told me it would lease for insert name of percentage height. I'm like, well, your sales agent obviously didn't pull comps because they didn't include any expenses in that. So we on our website, we have calculators for all this. We are very, very conservative with our figures. You'll see those at the end. And Annie, I want to be respectful of your time too. We probably need to zip through some of these too, so we don't keep you guys too long. But Houston's actually up. I pulled our updated numbers this afternoon to pull it for July. The August numbers come out in 2 days, so HAR runs a couple months behind with their reporting. But you can see, as far as the lease listings, there's some additional inventory, lease price going down, a fraction of 1%. New listings up significantly. As you go into fall, you see that more. And then days on market up 3 days. So we're still significantly under the national average for that. In our next slide, we can take a look at so this is Austin. We're kind of in a cooling rental cycle. We're seeing that a lot in pockets there. San Antonio is pretty stable. It's just more neighborhood specific. Dallas Metro is cooling, but they're projected to have a little bit of growth by the end of the year too with their leasing inventory and rental demand as well. So what makes Texas, and again, these are some questions that had come in from investors of ours. So what makes Texas more landlord friendly? We don't have all the red tape that you encounter in California or some of the other states. So evictions can be processed quickly. Thankfully, I have, knock on wood, only had to go through one of these for a tenant in 5 years here, but they can be processed very, very quickly. There's no statewide requirement that a lot of other states have to keep the tenants in place for a very long time. Our laws are just incredibly landlord friendly. They're written to protect the landlord. And when we were talking about the counties at the beginning with that slide, Montgomery County, part of why it's so popular too, is it is so landlord friendly. It is, Texas is, and then Montgomery County is like incredibly laws are in your favor as a landlord. So you can't get a much better setup when it comes to landlord law than investing in that county. So this is just kind of a snapshot of our job diversity for, Houston Metro. As you can see, there's a lot on here. If, and a lot of kind of, Kian touched on AI earlier. A lot of the industries here are not replaceable. We have, even with, ironically, with Apple, like making all these AI, chips there, it's going to bring thousands of jobs to the area. We have the medical campus, which has hundreds of thousands of people, many other industries, energy, things like that, will be more challenging to eliminate with AI. There's obviously going to be a need for physicians, things like that. So a lot of our primary industries are secured in that regard too. Oops. So obviously we've all seen all the movies, Apollo 13. Houston is also known as Space City. That's one of our nicknames. It's actually a big economic contributor to the city as well. So we are definitely an active space hub. I actually have a friend who works for NASA very high up. He works at Mission Control. He's the second desk from the primary guy. So we are a hub for space exploration. We are home to Johnson Space Center. So that's we'll get into that in a little bit, a big economic boost for the area. We hosted the International Space University, and we have a very large aeronautical industry here, a lot of engineering. And then our space center generates $118.7 million annually. It provides, a little over 1,700 jobs. So these are big economic contributors to the city as well. And also niche to the area. So it definitely brings people to the area. So this is NASA's annual impact to Texas. So they literally contribute $4.7 billion in the economic revenue for the Texas economy. NASA supports 52,000 jobs, over 52,000 jobs, and we already talked about the Space Center revenue annually. So these are, some big numbers that's bringing into the city. in the Johnson Space Center. That's where they do a lot of the training. There's a lot of the different uh, firms, both government and private, where they do partnerships. They'll take on projects together, and a lot of them collaborate for specific tasks. So the Space Center employs 3,200 civil servants, 110 astronauts, which is crazy to me, and over 11,000 contractors. So there's always collaborative action happening there as well. And our spaceport. So this is actually just at the front of our airport, but it's a Center for Collaboration and Innovation, one of the most important aerospace and aviation hubs. And it basically helps with a range of commercial endeavors, anywhere from aerospace, manufacturing, low Earth orbit, and lunar operations activities. So helping with tech there as well. And if anyone's local, or even if they're not, Houston is big on our sports here. We have 5 professional sports teams. These are obviously both a lot of fun and great for the community and big income producers for the area as well. So this was kind of a fun stat. So in 2023, we hosted the Final Four tournament, and that event alone brought in $270 million. So professional sports are a big deal for Houston's economy. They were suggesting annually it's bringing in 1.1 billion per season. That's just from the Texans, which is wild because the Astros have a cult following too. So, these teams are making a big difference on the economy of our city as well. So obviously we have college sports. There's quite a few colleges in the area with sports teams. So that's obviously bringing in tourism, economic, flourishing from people coming to watch all of these games and traveling, etc. And then A&M, although I wouldn't say it's necessarily Houston Metro, it's about an hour. I'm sitting in the Woodlands right now at the Waterway at our office here. It's about, if I got in my car, it'd take about an hour to get there. So we would be the closest major metro, and they're a sports powerhouse for anybody that follows sports. So that's definitely a lot of Aggies that live in the area. And then Houston has the largest rodeo in the whole world, which is pretty cool. It's super fun. It's definitely like a cult following here. If you haven't been, you should definitely come out in March. Every year the dates change a little bit. 2026 is basically the month of March. So every night they have a huge headliner come, and the tickets are pretty darn affordable. Everything is done. I believe everybody that works the event are volunteers. Like there's tens of thousands of volunteers every night. So because of that, they are able to raise a ton of money for scholarships, and it's just a really, really cool event. So last year's rodeo raised almost $600 million. So pretty fun event to come to, and it's a great way to see the city if you've never been. And this was exciting too. So in 2024, Michelin actually added Houston to their roster. So we had been snubbed for the years prior, lots of James Beard restaurants here, but we were officially added to the fold in 2024. There's a lot of really cool restaurants that got added. And that's just an exciting thing for the city too. There was a very thriving food scene. We're such a diverse city. It's just cool to see the different cuisines offered, but having Michelin here is a big deal. People are, traveling to eat now too. And then Apple, this is a very big deal. So the AI facility, we touched on that earlier, they're building a 250,000 square foot server manufacturing factory in Houston. And so that the construction's already started. They're expecting it to be completed in 2026. Originally, Apple said over the next 4 years, they were going to invest $500 billion in US operations in the next 4 years. Now they've upped that to 600 billion. So far, plant-wise, the only one on the radar they've announced thus far has been in Houston. I have a client that's very high up at Apple. They're very excited about the Houston development. He's actually an investor out here as well. And he advised they could be doing additional warehouses down the line as well. So Apple is going to be really amazing for the economy here as well. So it's an already strong economy. This is going to be injecting a lot of jobs, a lot of capital, and a lot of desirability for, people looking to have rentals in proximity to the manufacturing plant as well.
Hey, Rachel, do you want to
Yeah.
jump to the property? I know we're in the last like 10 minutes or so. So should we jump to the property picks just to kind of give
Yeah.
people some examples on some properties for Houston?
Yeah.
This is the first one, so I'll let you kind of take over and present these options.
Yeah, absolutely. So I pointed the cursor to that neighborhood earlier in the presentation, but Lexington Heights is my favorite community for investors, probably the last year and a half. So it's in Willis, but not super far out in Willis. It's right near Lake Conroe, and it's very close to one of the most popular master plan communities in Houston Metro, which is called the Woodlands Hills. So that community is incredibly expensive with taxes. I believe 3.4%. They have HOA dues near $2,000 a year. Like it's very, very expensive. It's a great neighborhood for a primary residence. They have phenomenal amenities, but literally 5 minutes door to door from that community is Lexington Heights. And I love that community too. Kind of what Kian said, our recipe is very much buy the worst player on the best team. That doesn't mean it's a bad house. We're not going to advise anything that isn't a great house. But this particular Builder Century Communities, we've sold a lot of their properties, so they are very great with our clients. And they sell a quality product that comes truly turnkey for you for your tenants. It includes, the fence, sod front and back, full sprinkler system, garage door opener, blinds throughout, refrigerator, washer, and dryer, which you'd be shocked. Most builders are like, oh, you want grass in your yard? That's going to cost you. So, I mean, on closing day, we're basically doing the onboarding inspection for you as an investor and then putting it up for a lease very quickly. So, the price points, as you can see too, are very favorable. Like we're looking at sub 250 with a lot of these as well. So definitely. And again, like I was saying, our calculators are incredibly conservative. A lot of people, when they're looking at new builds, are going to put this number at 3 or 4%, which is obviously going to even more favorably impact your numbers. But these properties lease really quickly. They've been very popular with Houston
Right.
investors.
Annie, you had a question about the negative cash flow on year 15. So kind of just to break this down, I don't know if my cursor is visible to everybody, but
Mhm.
this bracket right
Yes.
here is going to be fixed expenses. So it's kind of like your insurance, your taxes, your mortgage payment, things that you can predict that are unfortunately always going to be there. This monthly income is taking that minus the estimated rent. So that's what you would make year one based off of what the rents are today. This says year 15. The longer version of our calculator, you can tweak
Mhm.
the amount of years that you hold on the property. We don't build in rent increases. And that's where Rachel's saying our calculator is very conservative in that. Obviously, over 15 years, you're going to have an increase, but there's a lot more volatility in markets on rents based, rather than purchase prices are a little bit more predictable. So I would say generally you can estimate probably anywhere from 3 to 5% increases, and that would put you well in the positives. But this
Mhm.
is just a number based off of the rents today. And this number is taking in all this variable expense. So estimated maintenance, we put 8%. So 8% of the rent is what we're saying a landlord should tentatively, whether they save it or not is on them, but that's kind of what you should save, or what for this class of property, probably what you would spend over time, over 15 years, is that you would need, 8% of the rent over 15 years for maintenance. Vacancy is the same thing. You can try to, the nicer the property is, the idea is that you probably will keep a tenant a little bit longer. A classes tend to keep tenants about 2.5 years on average. B class is like more like 18 months, and then C class usually tends to be about a year, if not a little bit less, depending on the area. So 8% is kind of estimating that every 18 months, you would potentially have a vacancy for about 30 days. It could be better than that, worse than that. It's going to depend on the time of year. That's kind of the estimate for this property. And then you have a leasing fee. So for our team to lease it, it's 50% of 1 month's rent. So today, if you bought this, putting 30% down, you would have to pay 82K to buy this property. Today, it would cash flow $76 positive, and that's paying all of your fixed expenses. Now, all these rainy day expenses, you know, maybe your property never goes vacant for 5 years. We love when that happens. And especially for a newer property, we put 8% because if you're going to hold it for 15 years, the maintenance is going to start to show year 5 through 15. The first 5 years, you're not going to pay 8% of maintenance a year, but you should start saving for year 10, 11, 12, 13. So at that point, you're not coming out of pocket. So that's the calculator defaults to 15. We're kind of telling you tentatively put that aside for a rainy day. But it's not taken out. Marshall Reddick doesn't take that. The only thing we would take is a leasing fee if it goes vacant. So that's kind of a worst case scenario based off of the rents today. Obviously year 15 would be a lot better for cash flow based on the rents. But we're really trying to be within a small negative. And we didn't do tweaking, but I would typically put 5% on maintenance, 5% on vacancy. And sometimes, you know, if we can get the builder to do it, we may kick in a free PM incentive for the first year, and that would bump you up to only about like a negative 100. You know, and so that's not even really money you're losing the first year. That's just less that's covering maintenance potentially in the future. So we try to put that in owners' heads so that they don't feel like, you know, they were never told they should save money. You know, I sometimes that goes without saying, but we always want to educate people, save for a rainy day, even if it's new construction. But with these, you have the 10-year warranty for foundation. Usually have a 5 for electrical, plumbing, and roof. And then the first year or two, you're getting a lot of the appliances covered. So you're not really going to have a lot out of pocket. But it's better to be safe and conservative. But that would be a worst case scenario stat, just to answer your question, Annie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then
And
stay on this for once. I want to give like some, if you can go back on the previous slide. Yeah. So for a couple quick notes for people who are not really familiar with the Houston market, especially if you're like California and looking at a state, there's two things I want to let you guys know is about the HOA fee is don't be scared because I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, I don't want to deal with the Karens or they're frightened by, you know, California's really giant HOA fees.
Yeah.
But in Houston itself, like in a lot of places, actually in Texas, I've seen that the HOA fees are really, really low. So like this one is like in the 60s. I've seen even lower ones. But don't be scared by it because especially in the Houston side, I've seen a lot of areas where the ones without HOAs, like there's no curbs, there's no lights. It's actually really like kind of for me, I don't really like those areas. It looks a little ghetto to me, but in the areas where they actually do have HOA fees, they are just the properties are much well taken care of, especially the neighborhood. So don't be scared by that. It's relatively small amount, but you're just the curb appeal is much, much nicer. And then specifically, there are curbs in some places. Most places I haven't seen curbs. The other thing want to let you guys know is I'm looking kind of like about the leasing fee, about the 50%, you know, the 1 month's rent and all that. So I have to tell you, I've already been hunting down like many, many property management companies prior to going with Marshall Reddick. And I have to say that their fee is actually really, really fair. A lot of the companies that I was looking into or were previously using, the majority I've seen they were at 10% of the rent and 1 month's rent. And the one that I came before that, so I already switched 3 companies in the last like year or two, and the other one was still at 65% plus like a flat fee about $100. So in terms of pricing, like I've seen that they've been pretty fair. So I just want to kind of give you guys like an idea, you know, on about the HOAs and the leasing is that these are pretty good numbers,
And we
Yeah.
at
don't
least from my experience as an investor. And I'm not getting paid by them or anything. I'm just telling you like this is what I've saw from my experience.
And we don't charge during the vacancy either. So, you
Mhm.
know, our leasing team is separate from PM. They're 1099s. They only get paid when the property leases out. So they have an incentive to find somebody, but they're not the person that approves the tenant. So that's PM. So we don't rush to get somebody just to get an agent paid and get you money on the property. We want to pick a good person that qualifies through our requirements, and we're pretty stringent on that. We want good credit, good income, no criminal or background that is negative or broken leases, stuff like that. And pets, we have our own requirements for it, but we kind of let owners play with that as they will. We have some owners that have pets, love pets. We have some that say, hey, you know, I had a bad experience one time, no to pets. And we're cool with that if you want to do that. But yeah, like Annie said, HOAs to me, I always say is a second set of eyes on the property. It's like a second property manager because they're doing the drive-bys. we do an annual renewal inspection covered in your renewal fee that you get, and that's 15% is our renewal fee. Like Andy said, for some owners, that's a little bit higher that they do. But we do a really in-depth inspection. We go in the home before we actually let them sign another 12 months with you. We're going to do a full inspection, send you those photos, maybe get recommendations to you if we feel like work needs to get done, or if the tenant is not taking care of the AC, not taking care of the grass. We're going to escalate that with them. And we're going to make sure, do we want to keep this tenant? Do we not? Where's the rental market at? So around renewal, it's not just a very kind of turnkey, thoughtless thing for us. We really want to make sure we're keeping a quality tenant. That tenant has taken good care of your property. We're not putting you at risk of a long vacancy potentially if we kick that tenant out. So all of those nuanced discussions our PM staff is really experienced in. And 9%, like Annie says, a lot of them are at 10%. For duplexes, we go to 8, duplexes to 4plexes, and 5plex and up, we go to 7. So we have that fee structure, and we only really have those main 3 fees, which is the 50% of 1 month rent every time we have to find a tenant. The monthly management, which is only charged when we have a tenant, not when it's vacant, and that's anywhere from 7 to 9%. And then we have the renewal fee, which is 15% of 1 month's rent, to negotiate with the tenant on a renewal option. So to do the inspection, deliver that to you, get any potential bids, escalate things with the tenant, give them a renewal option that you agree on is valuable based on the market, and we will give you a recommendation for that. Let you do something that you feel comfortable with, and get a renewal negotiated. So it's a lot more hands-on. A lot of people say 15% renewal, but when I talk to them about their renewal experience with their other landlord, their landlord's just shooting out, add $50 to their rent and just shoot that out and not even think about it. Don't look at the market, don't look at the comps, don't do an inspection, don't talk with the owner. So we really want to keep the portfolio clean. Our default rate is like less than 1%. So this year, for all of Texas, which is like 2,500 units, we've had 2 evictions, which is really good. And those are properties we inherited. We didn't even place those tenants. So not trying to brag on us, just wanted to give you some more context on our PM fees. And thank you, Annie, for piggybacking on that point. But I'll give it to Rachel to kind of finish on these last few property
Yeah.
picks.
And real quick, just back for community high level for Lexington Heights C4, it will be gated, which is going to be amazing. It's in kind of what Annie was saying. I'm big on what I call aesthetic based HOAs, not amenity based HOAs. So the Woodlands Hills right down the street from Lexington Heights, that is 100% an amenity based HOA. They have a lazy river, they have a putting green and this and that. Lexington Heights is very nominal. They have walkways, and it's manicured, and they enforce their restrictions, and it's going to be gated, but that keeps your cost really low. So those are actually awesome. It's nothing like the California HOAs. Whoa. Sorry, we're like I said, it's the evening hours. So I can't get my light to turn back on. There we go. So this next property is in Forest Village, and I know I'm trying to be cognizant of your time, guys. This is our most popular, I would say, pre-owned neighborhood. This is in Spring, minutes from the Woodlands. So if you wanted to go to the pre-owned route, they're both great. Pros and cons to both. But this particular neighborhood, we have a lot of investors that have property in here. And lately, it's been very exciting to be a buyer's agent in this market. I am getting my buyers insane offers accepted, just like Annie said. Like, she's seen the offers that come through. Unfortunately, they're aggressive if you're looking to sell right now, but if you're looking to buy, she hit the nail on the head. This is the time to do so. There's amazing deals to be had. So this is a very popular community. And again, I always try to go conservative on rent. There are rents, very light kind products that go up to 2,900 in this neighborhood, but there was a couple that were 2,250. So to 23, I'm confident in this. We could probably even go higher. So I'm always going to try to give you the straight answer and estimate conservatively.
The
So
other thing is I would say the next 3 months are like the buyer's market has already been here for a while, but the
Yeah.
next months are going to be even a further buyer's market. And I always say that this is my methodology for any year, but especially this year, people who list during Thanksgiving to New Year's, that stretch, it kind of reeks of desperation to me, because it's like nobody would do that to me willingly. It's like maybe divorce, it is financial hardship, and that's horrible. But for your
Job relocation is a big one for here too. A lot of people are contractual workers. So if they get transferred out, moved for an energy role or medical, yeah, we see that a lot. Let's go Christmas shopping, guys. That's amazing. Yeah, I agree. And I put a couple multifamily in here as well. This is a little multifamily in Conroe. This definitely would be a B class. So, sometimes you see these beautiful new builds like this one. It's darling, and this one is 50% occupied too. So you would automatically have cash flow from day one. I believe the occupied side, I want to say it's at 1,500 for a year. But sometimes with these newer builds, especially Old Town Conroe, very much tip of the sword for gentrification. So all around downtown near like the office or the government buildings and such, they're older homes, just older neighborhoods. They're a little tired. So developers are coming in and buying these individual lots and putting these beautiful homes into. So you're seeing rents increase a lot too, but there's not the continuity you would see in these other previous two neighborhoods I showed you where, similar products, things like that. So pros and cons, but honestly, this duplex is about half the cost of any of the duplexes you're going to see anywhere else on our website as well. So if you want to get in the multifamily game, there's some really good deals to be had there as well. And again, this one's half occupied. And I have one more duplex. This one is in Roman Forest, which is like New Caney area, pretty close to a big master plan community out here that's popular. This duplex is occupied on both sides through next summer too. So that's kind of a cool, you avoid leasing fees when you purchase something that is already tenant occupied. Obviously, we're going to walk the interiors for you. I had a client that looked at this one too. I've seen it, that both units are very nice. So there's a little bit of something for everyone, and kind of what we were touching on earlier to explain a little bit more of my role too, as we continue at the end. I can just show you. If you work with Annie and I, you're not limited to just Houston. A lot of what I do is in other parts of the country too. Yes, I'm locally licensed agent, Houston expert for the real estate here, and we can do a deep dive. I'd be happy to get way more nuanced with any of your clients individually based on their needs and what they're looking for. We can, real time look at the MLS. I'm real live. You can come out. I'm happy to take you around and show you in person if you like. A lot of our Marshall Reddick clients do buy sight unseen, but you can't really hide from online reviews in this day and age. I bought all of my properties with Marshall Reddick sight unseen until we moved out to Texas. So, and they all worked out. So, yeah, as far as if anybody was interested in any other part of Texas or any of our other markets as well, that's something that we can help you guys with as well.
And also one thing, I know the cash flow of these is not like mind blowing. The one thing I do mention is we put the mortgage rate where rates are at right now, which is kind of like high sixes to mid sixes. Like Rachel said, concessions are very popular right now, and you can use that to buy down the rate. Conventionally, there's usually going to be like a 2% cap. But the cool thing is like we have a lender, preferred lender Reed, with CMG. And if we get a seller to agree to it, they can do something called a forward commitment. So kind of off of the contract, which again, the contract dictates 2% as a cap conventionally, can out of the seller's proceeds, actually have them forward commit more money off the side to buy a rate down even lower. So sometimes like for 6 points, we can get down to like 4.75 or mid fives. These things are always in flux. But that can be negotiated. Like Rachel said, she's been working crazy deals, and it depends where kind of the investor has put their focus. Sometimes people are really bullish on kind of the price they buy it at, and so they want 30K off the price. And so she works like hell to get that done. Some are really big on the incentives and the cash flow. So let's negotiate for free property management for a year, maybe trying to get a leasing fee covered, and let's also get a big forward commitment so we can get the rate down to 4.75 or 5.25. And that would expand cash flow significantly. You know, if you get 20K off the price versus 20K towards the rate will get you way better cash flow than off the price at the same rate, or at current rates, I should say. So staying in the sixes is not great. A lot of builders in particular have their own lender in-house and usually are offering something as is where they say, hey, if you use our lender, it's 5.25. And so a lot of these things would change. What we presented to you is kind of like the worst if you went with where rates are at right now. But typically, Rachel, if it's a new construction, is trying to get you something there where it's getting bought down. And I know rates actually this last week turned it down a bit. And I think at the next Fed meeting, they've kind of signaled another drop, which is great. So I think with just the job numbers that came out, we can expect that. So hopefully by the time we get another Fed chair in May, I think they're going to get more aggressive about decreases. And I think for next summer, that will increase the market a lot. So I cannot stress enough. I would say that now too, if you're kind of thinking about buying, I think there's like an opportune time from now to January or February, before maybe there's more aggressive drops next summer. It's really going to depend on jobs reports, and how kind of things look in the market with AI jobs. And we're going to start to see that over the next 6 months, the repercussions of that in the economy. But just to the point on cash flow, we'll have Annie kind of like send these slides. Like she said, she has this as a recording, but in having a personal consult with you, we can kind of show you maybe like a potential offer and what that would look like, negotiating that down or the price or wherever you feel like is comfortable for you or what's more important for you.
Absolutely. I will always send my clients, if they're interested in a particular property, I will pull and send rental comps. I will pull and send sales comps, and then I will provide a suggested offer structure to send for their endorsement too. So, and in this market, we are going aggressive. And I literally, I'm very excited. This last week or a couple weeks ago, I got my client the lowest sales price in Wood Forest in the last 4 years with the offer I got accepted. We like seriously lowball it. So it's really fun time to go shopping. We're able to get you guys some really, really good deals.
And this is our PM structure. We talked a little bit about this. This is kind of a cluster of all the properties we manage. Like I said, it's about 2,500 units total. For us, Houston is pretty new. It's only about 3 years, but Rachel has dominated in that market. Our office is in the Woodlands. We just started in Dallas about a year ago. We're in Plano, Texas, which is another hub of a lot of businesses. I think we're having a presentation the 30th. So if you're on that, we're very excited to be talking again with our Dallas rep, Eric, over there. And then we have a whole bunch in Central Texas. So I think in the future, next year, we may be doing some more things with Sarah, which we're really excited about, and having you more over here in my stomping grounds. But whether you're looking in any of these metros, we're very excited to be a resource to you guys. And if you have a current property manager you're not happy with, we're totally happy to swoop in and hopefully save the day for you. We do it all the time. So I think that's it for us. If you guys had any questions for me or Rachel while you're on, we really appreciate your time. And connect with Annie if you want to get connected with us further. If you do reach out to us directly, that's fine. Definitely let us know you're from SARE. That helps a lot. And yeah, again, if you have any questions, please reach out.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. And thank you, Annie, for having us. This is awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. So look, I'm going to add on a little bit things for you Asian community in here. For those who are wondering if Houston or Texas is just full of like white people food. All right, no. Seriously, Houston has some of the best Asian foods ever. Okay, I want to let you guys know that there is a Chinatown. There, for those who don't know, there the central side there is the Chinatown, and there's also Katy Asia Town. So if you're ever missing your Asian food and your H Smarts and all that, we've got that. Okay, so don't worry about that. There's also really good Vietnamese buffet, the best I've ever had in Kim Son. So if you guys ever go, we will take you there. And then also, as throughout this presentation, like I've been reflecting and learning. I know, Penny, you're like laughing. Yes, there's really, really good Asian food, but I've been reflecting more and more. And the reason why I know I probably clickbaited all of you guys to coming because you probably saw my post and went like, how did Annie, who runs SARE, lose almost $200,000 in Houston? And as I'm listening to it, the presentation. there's more and more that I picked up, and especially from experience now that I've gone through multiple property managers. One, I would say one of the biggest mistakes that I've done, and you probably heard, is really about property management. If I went back in time thinking about this property, yes, it's probably not in the best area that I picked out, but it should not have gone to the quality of what happened in my property. Um, First of all, my mistake was picking out a company that does both. The agent is also the PM. Their leasing agents were also 1099s and trying to do the leasing. They didn't give a shit. That was probably one of the biggest mistakes I've had. You heard Marshall already just talk about that, is that they have a separate branch. It's a completely different person that's handling it, and it's their full timers. That's their only job, is to fix up your properties and get them rented out as quickly as possible. For a lot of the other companies that I was seeing, especially the smaller companies, they were trying to just give their agents more jobs while things were slow. I can tell you that I've ghost called the companies. I've never gotten responses. I've also had previous issues with my old PMs. They never responded, or they would do rehabs and stuff without sending me invoices or quotes. And I would go maybe months and months without any response. And after switching over my companies, the coolest thing was that I actually get calls from my leasing agent telling me what things are going, what are happening, explaining like what are things are broken, if there's issues with the tenants. I've never gotten that ever, 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 ever. I've worked with another company. We'll have some emails back and forth, but I've never gotten personal calls on a regular basis on what's happening. And so just from that, I already know the difference that I went with the wrong company. And my other mistake was I did not go and visit these properties before buying. I also did not tour the areas before buying. And I got tempted by just, oh, I'm an out-of-state person. I can just look at performas and underwrite and believe in that. But no, that was probably the biggest mistake that I probably did, was going off of numbers that were given to me by the agents themselves who were trying to push the sales. And perfectly frank, knowing that I'm an out-of-state investor who's investing for the first time in that area or in Houston, they should have never shared that or that property to me. It They really shouldn't. And it was because it's a very working class areas where they don't speak English, where they could not even manage themselves. And it really was painful. But when I decided to cut them about a year and a half ago, my property was completely destroyed, both of them. And it was left vacant for the majority of the 4 or 5 years that I've owned it. And that's where I lost all that money. So if I had gone with a company that took good quality of it, I would have not lost that money. And this time when I'm selling, I was lucky to get a listing price when the properties are not even inhabitable. And so I have to say, Rachel did a really, really amazing job helping me get out of that mess. It was very, very traumatic for me for those last couple years, and it really hurt my confidence as an investor. But I wanted to use this opportunity to turn it positive and really learn from the mistakes that I did, because I don't want to be scared of real estate. I'm still learning, but now I have a better community and people that I can trust. I During my process with working with Kayan and Rachel, is that we did go through the properties to decide whether I should fix it, or rent it out and then sell it, or sell it as is. So we did talk about this in detail before we came to a decision together to sell. So that's what I want you guys to know, is when you guys are looking for agents, whether you work with Marshall Reddick or someone else or in another area, is really go through your options, analyze them in a way, just take the motion out of all of this and really do your research, go and visit those areas before picking. So speaking of which, Sarah, we do a lot of field trips and we do go and visit out of state and go check out properties. So for those who want to learn a little bit more about Dallas, we actually happen to be having we're going to be in Dallas for the actually it's not the residential side. We're going to be doing it for the multifamily syndication apartment tours. That's going to be scheduled in October 6th or 7th. And we'll be going to the Old Capitol Conference as well. But if anyone wants to join in on the conference and want to go and check out the city, learn more about them, let us know. I'd be happy to connect you with Eric. Eric is actually also helping me with my Arlington property, which is in Dallas. And then, yes, we are doing more field trips in Texas. So aside from Dallas, we will be going to, or at least I'm planning, these are all in my head right now. It's not official until I write it down somewhere. But it will be our 6 year anniversary very, very soon in April 30th. And we're going to be going to where we started. And also visit Nelson because he's over there. But we're planning to go to Austin and San Antonio for the weekend of April 30th to about May 2nd. So once I have more information, I would love for you guys to come join us. There'll be a huge party, and we'll get to check out the city. But if you guys have any questions or want to reach out, just let us know. We will hook you up and get you guys more information, whether it's in Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, or there's other places that we can help you with. So thank you guys so much for your time. I know you guys stuck around for a really long time, and thank you for not, losing your faith in me over that $200,000. I still feel guilty about it, but I know I'm going to 10x it somehow with Rachel and Kane's help coming soon. All right, so
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. I'll
Thanks,
talk to you guys
guys.
soon. Appreciate it.
You guys, take care.
Bye, guys.